It looks like a ZX Spectrum game, but it totally isn't. Hey everyone, Chris here with another filler video, and we're starting it off with Princess Remedy in a World of Hurt. A few fans may recognize this, as it's one of a handful of Ludosity games that I've streamed in the past, and one that probably deserves a second look, given the things that are going on in the world right now. Now, if the name Ludosity sounds familiar, but you don't recognize this game, then you're probably more familiar with their It'll Do games, which are Zelda-inspired action-adventure games with much more of a puzzle focus than you'd typically see from such outings. Princess Remedy, on the other hand, was something Ludosity originally made for the 96-hour Games Against Ebola Game Jam hosted by the Humble Bundle site back in 2014. Now, following the Game Jam, Ludosity refined the game to add a few quality of life features and released it on Steam as freeware. Yep, this game costs $0, which seems appropriate as you can see pretty much everything the game has to offer in about an hour, and you're only going to get more play out of it by trying to tackle the higher skill levels. The plot of the game is pretty simple. You play a Saturnian healer known as Princess Remedy, who must descend upon the world of Hurtland and cure every one of their ailments by throwing massive quantities of magical healing items at all the icky things inside them. Now, the controls are also incredibly simple, as you simply have directional buttons and an action button. Now in combat, you fire automatically, and you use the action button to throw explosive healing flasks, which can take out multiple enemies at once. Now, as with most Ludosity games, the story and game mechanics are very basic yet fun, and what helps the game stand out amongst other games is the humor. As you might imagine with a premise like this, the game doesn't take itself even remotely seriously. Now, some of the characters in the game try to, but even they ultimately succumb to the princess's charms, or drugs. But yeah, some of the people or creatures you go around healing have a legitimate problem, like a stubbed toe or a case of amnesia, while others have questionable ailments, like a stomachache from eating too much chocolate or being on fire, while others still have ailments which are absolutely ridiculous, like a spider which has too many legs, so the solution is to give it even more legs. In any case, every time you heal someone, you get a heart, which increases your maximum health, but these hearts are also used to open gates blocking access to the rest of Hurtland. You also find chests, which contain other kinds of power-ups, including additional flasks you can throw during combat, power points, which make your attack stronger, extra shots that you can fire a bigger spread of attacks, and regeneration points, which allow you to regenerate your health in larger bursts during combat. Since the game is free, I'm not going to spoil too much, but I do want to mention that after you defeat the final boss, you get a chance to marry someone, and not just someone, but rather anyone you have encountered in the game. Now, all this does is generate a unique line of text, but half the fun of the game is, surprisingly, spending almost as much time getting up to and defeating the final boss, going around marrying everyone to see what their dialogue is. I mean, sure, you could marry the prince you saved, as would kind of be expected, but you could marry his servant Jeff, or you could marry Slinky the spider, or you could marry Wobbly the slime, or you could marry the apathetic frog, not that it cares. Heck, you could even marry an empty chest. Actually, speaking of chests, this game has a very interesting feature, specifically a chest unlike any other chest, known as the Jealous Chest. Now, it's found a little over halfway through the game, and it's special in that it is so incredibly jealous that it will refuse to let you open it unless it is the first chest you open during your quest. Now, keep in mind, you cannot power up Remedy without opening chests, which means to open this chest, you have to beat the first half of the game without any power-ups. Now, it's doable for sure, but expect a lot of healing failures along the way, which thankfully don't set you back any. You just have to restart a healing attempt over again if you fail it. Another thing you can do once you've beaten the game is challenge the higher skill settings. The next skill level up from the normal difficulty makes some of the enemies you face a bit more challenging, usually by giving them more kinds of attacks, while the highest difficulty plays exactly the same as the middle difficulty, except the frame rate is higher and thus everything goes faster. So that's Princess Remedy in a World of Hurt. But now let's talk about the sequel, or rather the prequel, Princess Remedy in a Heap of Trouble. Now, unlike the first Princess Remedy game, this one's got a bit more to it. That's why it's not freeware like the first game, but it's also not that expensive, just $5 US. It plays pretty much the same, but has some notable differences which actually end up changing the whole experience to an extent. But firstly, you now date people. Pretty much any NPC is now someone Remedy can start dating, and when she does, they follow her around and provide some extra dialogue before the start of boss fights. Oh yeah, there's multiple bosses now, each of which reward a power-up of some kind on top of what you normally find in the chests. The other thing too that your date does is provide a new special ability. Now without a date, you have your basic healing flasks, same as in the first game, but you can also end up with big flasks, flasks you fling as a fastball, or non-flask abilities like the ability to stop enemy movement, the ability to heal yourself, or even special attacks like an injection gun or freaking healing lasers. Another more minor change is that regeneration in combat works differently. Now, instead of regenerating health over time, you regenerate health from successful hits against the enemies. Thus, your regeneration stat is now a drain stat, affecting how quickly you regain health from successful hits. The NPCs themselves are, for the most part, more wild and ridiculous than in the first game. I like this monster who believes he's always right and everyone else is wrong, who's cured by being made factually aware that he is always right and everyone else is always wrong. Or this whale who feels sluggish and bored, who's cured by giving it a set of wheels attached to its body. Or there's this storch who's on fire, this fire who's not on fire, and even this camper who seemingly has the perfectly normal ailment of a sore back, which is healed by transforming him back into an armadillo. Once again, the apathetic frog makes its appearance. Dating it gives you the ability of nothing? Interesting. Even when a character doesn't give you any special abilities, usually it says flask to indicate that you'll be using Remedy's default healing flasks. I wonder, is nothing an ability to transform enemies into nothing? Or maybe makes Remedy invisible and appearing as nothing? Or nope, it literally meant having no special ability. I am pushing the action button and nothing is happening. As before, I'm not going to spoil too much, but what I will say is that once you beat the game, you gain the ability to take your date to a ballroom dance, and the date you have does make a considerable difference as to how this plays out. Which again, I'm not going to spoil how it works, because there's a lot of fun to be had with this aspect. And something I'm absolutely not going to spoil is a massive secret I didn't even know about despite having beaten the game several times already, and discovered entirely by accident while recording footage for this. So let it be known, this game's got some very interesting things hidden within it just waiting to be uncovered. Although before I sign off, there's a couple technical things I should mention. The free game, Princess Remedy in a World of Hurt, was written in an old version of Game Maker, so it suffers from some of the same performance bugs that those old versions had, one of which in particular can absolutely murder the frame rate if you don't have a gamepad or joystick plugged in when Windows knows that at least one exists. In which case, make sure to have one plugged in when playing, even if you don't use it. On the other hand, the paid game Princess Remedy in a Heap of Trouble was made with Unity, like most things Ludosity makes, but it only presents standard screen resolutions on boot up, despite the game running in a non-standard 160 by 140 resolution internally, an aspect ratio of 8:7, meaning to get this game to look correct and to eliminate all aliasing, you have to manually set the resolution on boot up using Unity's standard command line parameters for doing so. Me in particular, I like having a 6x sized window for this game on my 1080p display. So what I did is went into the game's properties in Steam, selected the Set Launch Options button, and then for the command line I put in the following: -screen -width 960, -screen -height 840. Making note that there's no spaces around the second hyphens in both arguments. Now when you boot the game like this, it'll still ask for a display resolution, but so long as you've got it set to run in a window, it should ignore the resolution in the configuration panel and run the game with the resolution that you manually assigned, giving you crisp, unaliased pixels, so long as your width is a multiple of 160 and your height is a multiple of 140. Anywho, that's all for this filler video. Next episode of Ancient DOS Games, episode 267, will be coming out on Saturday, May 2nd, where we're actually going to be taking a proper look at a somewhat famous game which showed up on shovelware diggers a while back, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching everyone, and extra special thanks to those of you supporting me on Patreon. Here's just a small random selection of you all. Oh hey look, it's the official Ludosity seal of quantity. I have all sorts of things wrong with me. Well, we'll see about that. Oh geez.